I'd like to call this meeting to order. Councilman Blackwell, would you lead us in a prayer?
Thank you. Let us stand, please. Thank you. Father, we thank you for another day and another opportunity to serve your people. And we thank you for the building of your kingdom. And thank you for blessing us with wisdom and understanding. We, Father, pray with the rest of the nation in our hearts for the family of the Bryants who lost their dad and their sister. We ask that you bring comfort to that family, Father, and then help us all to understand and realize what's real and what's important. Help us not to trivialize issues that are important and not to diminish issues that are really important. And we thank you for the blessings of life and love, strength and health. In Jesus' name we pray.
All right, roll call.
Councilmember Nye.
Here.
Blackwell.
Here.
Joyner.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Daughtridge.
Here.
Bullock.
Here.
And Miller.
Okay, great. We have one general item that we need to add. The city manager has asked that we go into closed session at the end of the meeting, discussing issues, and then we'll come back out. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. That said, item number 4 is the approval of the minutes of a regular scheduled meeting of the City Council held on January 13th of 2020. Recommended action is to approve the minutes. So moved by Mr. Blackwell. Mr. Knight. Thank you, Mr. Joyner. Any discussion? All in favor, by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Okay, item 5 on the agenda is the consideration of minutes and recommendations from regular rescheduled committee of the whole meeting held on January 13th. In closed session, there was current attorney-client privilege, payment condition survey, Dirt Street paving program, and some other recommendations. The recommendation action is to approve the minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Knight, seconded by Ms. Miller. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Okay, item number 6 is community update. City Manager Rochelle Small-Tongue.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Mayor, members of council. First, I'm very excited to announce that Cynthia Jones will begin her tenure as the city's Community and Business Development Director on Monday, February the 24th. I appointed Cynthia to this position last week. She is a native of Rocky Mount and has nearly 20 years of municipal government experience. She has spent the past 4 years as the Edgecombe County Planning and Inspections Department Director. She holds a master's degree in public administration from North Carolina Central University, a Bachelor of Science degree in urban and regional planning from East Carolina University, and an associate's degree in applied science and administrative office technology from Edgecombe Community College. So we certainly look forward to Cynthia's leadership in one of the most strategic areas of this administration. The Tar River Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility treated 4.33 billion gallons of wastewater in 2019. The wastewater system annual performance report is now available and can be found on the Water Resources page of the city's website. The Children's Museum and Science Center's new traveling exhibit From Here to There is now open and will run through May 10th. Visitors will be able to explore the science of how things move by land, sea, and air. This is located in the Imperial Center for the Arts and Sciences. The museum is open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at a cost of $6 per child, and on Sunday from 1 to 5 p.m. The museum is free, of course, for all residents. Yoga in the galleries classes are available every Tuesday from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. for $5 per class at the Imperial Center for the Arts and Sciences. Clay Arts After School for children ages 7 to 13 also begins this week And for information and pricing, please go online at theimperialcenter.org. On February the 7th at 6 o'clock p.m., visitors are invited to watch a documentary, The Other Boys of Summer, focusing on the Negro League Baseball. The showing is a part of the First Friday activities held at the Imperial Center for the Arts and Sciences. The documentary is an exploration of civil rights in America through the lives of men and women Negro League baseball players who played professionally in the 1930s through the 50s alongside Jackie Robinson. The Negro Leagues were a form of high-level baseball that existed before African Americans were allowed in the major league. There are also 2 meetings that will be held during the week of February the 2nd. The first one on Monday, February the 3rd at 3 o'clock p.m. The Technical Coordinating Committee will meet in the committee room on the 3rd floor of City Hall. And then on Thursday, February the 6th at 8:30 a.m., the Central City Revitalization Panel, better known as the CCRP, will meet in the committee room as well. All meetings are open to the public. And then finally, on the next several months, you will hear me talk about the 2020 census, because the census is what determines funding for our housing programs, for schools, for hospitals, economic development, and so much more in our community. We encourage you to ensure your household, your neighbor's household, and your community are counted in this 2020 census. Your confidential data can be submitted online at 2020census.gov. And if you do not respond online, you will receive a paper application in April via the regular mail. So we encourage you to please stand up and be counted. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Of course, I will emphasize the need to be counted in the 2020 census. I think that's something that's important to all of us as a community. At this time, I would like to recognize the centennial celebration of the Negro National League Week, and that will be designated as February 10th through the 14th. I'll ask Ms. Rose Hunter to come down and to accept the proclamation.
All of you all are welcome.
Set us up the way you want to set it up. There she is. Whereas the year 2020 marks the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the Negro National League, a professional baseball league formed in response to African American players being banned from the major leagues. And whereas on February 13, 1920, Andrew Rube Foster, convening a meeting of 8 independent African American baseball team owners at the CEO YMCA in Kansas City, Missouri, to form a league of their own, establishing the Negro National League, the first successful, organized, professional African-American baseball league in the United States, which would operate for 40 years until 1960. And whereas the story of the Negro Leagues is a story of strong-willed athletes who forged a glorious history in the midst of an inglorious era of segregation in the United States. And whereas the passion of the Negro Leagues players for the national pastime would not only change the game, but also the United States. And whereas the creation of the Negro Leagues providing a playing field for more than 2,600 African American and Hispanic baseball players to showcase their world-class baseball abilities. And whereas a fast, aggressive style of play attracted black and white fans who sat together to watch those games at a time when it was virtually unheard of to interact socially in such a way. And whereas Negro League Baseball would become a catalyst for economic development across the United States in major urban centers such as Kansas City, St. Louis, New York, Memphis, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Chicago, and Atlanta. And whereas the Negro Leagues pioneered night baseball in 1930, 5 years before Major League Baseball, and would introduce game-changing innovations such as shin guards and the batting helmet. And whereas Walter Fenner, Buck Leonard, a resident of Rocky Mount, would play in and thrive as an excellent baseball player in the Negro National League, eventually being inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 1972. Now therefore, I, C. Saunders Robertson, Jr., by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Rocky Mount, do hereby proclaim the week of February 10th through the 14th, 2020 as Centennial Celebration of the Negro National League Week. And witness, therefore, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the great seal, the seal of the city of Rocky Mount to be affixed this 27th day of January in the year 2020.
Big smile. 3, 2, and hold it. One more. 3, 2, 1. Don't go anywhere.
Okay, we're at item 8, petitions to be received from the public. Before we do that, I'd like to recognize York County House Representative Shirley Willingham for being in the audience today. All right, right, this is the petitions from the public portion of our city council meeting. And this is an opportunity for the public to comment, and we thank you for coming to council meetings to share your views. We value all citizen input. Please be aware that sign-in sheets must be presented to the officer prior to the opening of petitions from the public. If you'd like to address the council, you need to sign up. If you don't get a form to sign up, please raise your hand and someone will bring a form to you. Any comments should be directed to the council as a whole and not to an individual council member or city staff. This is your opportunity to raise a question or present a request to the council. However, in most cases, council members will not respond to public comments, but may refer the matter to city manager or staff for follow-up. We ask you speak from the podium in a civil, non-argumentative, and respectful manner. Personal attacks which have the potential to disrupt the meeting will not be tolerated, and you will be asked to sit down or be removed from the meeting. Time will be monitored in order to give everyone an opportunity to speak, and you will have 3 minutes. If an organized group is present to speak on a common issue, please designate one person to present the group's comments. If your comments are in regard to an item that is subject to a public hearing, please wait until that item is introduced to speak. Time will also be monitored. If your comments are in regard to an evidentiary hearing, additional time may be granted. I'd like to ask you as you come to the podium, please read your name and address into the record. Adrian Copeland.
Hey, my name is Adrienne Copeland. I live at 6020 Haywood Court in Rocky Mount. I want to discuss a property at 306 Villa Street. It is located in the Villa Place Local Historic District. On the agenda for tomorrow's Historic Preservation Commission meeting is a petition by the Community Code Supervisor to obtain a certificate of appropriateness in order to proceed with the process of demolition. The owner is a lovely woman who plans to restore the home and retire there, but sometimes life just gets in the way and she's not been able to keep up the property. A few years ago, I got in contact with her to try to purchase it, but I couldn't because of complicated title issues that we couldn't resolve, and they may never be resolved. So fast forward to today, and the house is on the track for demolition. There are back taxes in the thousands owed on the property that can't be paid. There are assessments for grass cuttings that can't be paid. And if the demolition goes through, there'll be a lien on the property for $8,000 or even up to $15,000. And it's all on a lot that might only be worth $6,000. Nobody can buy this property because of the title issues. Nobody's going to buy a vacant lot with more liens than it's worth. The values of the other homes in the area will suffer even more once it's a vacant lot. And because it's going to look like a missing tooth on the street, sending a message in the neighborhood that, it's on the way down. In the city, it will be more than $15,000 more in the hole, still be paying to cut the grass, and still be losing out on tax revenue. It's only going to get worse because the property can't be sold. The property owner is going to be out her original investment, plus the fines, the back taxes, and the liens that she can't stop from piling up. She can't cut her losses. She's trapped in this property for life. All of this could be avoided with tax foreclosures. The house could have been saved years ago because this process wipes out title issues, allows someone to purchase the home and keep it in good shape before it gets beyond the point of no return. It allows an owner to get out of an investment that went bad. And in cases like this one, you are our only hope. I'm sure there's concern out-of-state speculators may purchase a property and then just neglect it and not pay taxes still, but you can restrict it to in-person bids only. You can recoup all the back taxes, liens, and foreclosure costs by requiring them to be paid at closing. You can even contractually obligate the purchaser to complete certain repairs within a time frame, and I think even Downtown Renaissance Incorporated does that in their purchase agreements. So please don't sit back and let this keep happening. Please step in and allow someone else to do the work of keeping Rocky Mount beautiful. Please untie everyone's hands and start initiating tax foreclosures. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Copeland. Ms. Copeland, is the resident still living there, or has the resident moved away?
Her family lives in town, and so she bought the house so that she could eventually retire down here. She lives in New
So
Jersey.
she couldn't complete the repairs, so
She couldn't complete the repairs, and then she has a mother and a daughter that lost her job, had to move in with her. She's got a 93-year-old mother she has to take care of, and so now she's stuck up there and she can't move down here. She's got to keep her job. So, life just gets in the way.
Sure, thank you.
Next, Quinn Wilkins.
I'm Quinn Wilkins. I reside at 632 Amos Street in Rocky Mount. I would like to know why the city council members who were present and voting last year at the meeting on April 22nd have not, almost a year later, held the NAACP accountable in appointing a replacement for its representative to the Human Relations Commission. The minutes of the council meeting stated, council agreed that Mr. Dancy will continue to serve as a member of the Human Relations Commission until the next meeting of the NAACP board. On April 25th, 2019, a posting was made to the NAACP Rocky Mount Facebook page stating the NAACP would be meeting on April 28th, 6 days after the April 22nd council meeting. Again, here we are, almost a year later, and their representative, who is not a resident of the city of Rocky Mount and was not a resident when he was appointed, still remains on the HRC. Throughout the years, the national NAACP and its state organizations have been a beacon of light and respected organization in fighting and defending the rights of people of color. It is extremely important that people of color who live in this city have a voice on the HRC, and for our local NAACP leadership to not consider the urgency of this action is a disappointment, to say the least. Really, our citizens have been absent a representative since Mr. Dancy was appointed simply because he did not live in the city. The city council should have done its due diligence and followed up after the April council meeting and held the NAACP accountable, as the council minutes stated, to appoint someone to their next meeting. I respectfully ask this council, with its two newest members and leadership from our mayor, to do its due diligence and remove Mr. Dancy from the HRC and leave the seat vacant until filled with a city resident. 9 months is long enough. In closing, every citizen in this room and in this city should have something to say about this. No one, no organization should be allowed to hold our city or the HRC hostage for 9 months. If the NAACP has not named a replacement by the next council meeting, I urge this council to vote at that time to remove Mr. Dancy and leave the position vacant until it does. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkins. I'd like to ask Dr. Kim Koo.
Dr. Koo, my address is 220 South Englewood Drive. Mr. Mayor, council members, and fellow citizens. The Rocky Mount Telegram reported recently that our city streets need work that costs a grand total of $38.1 million. This will include minor rehabilitation, patchwork, resealing cracks, potholes, repaving, and sidewalk repairs. The article also mentioned that the work has been contracted out historically, and the current director of the city's public works has not seen fit to change this pattern. However, in investigating with the issue with city workers, this particular issue with city workers, it seems that in attempting to cut back on expenses, the streets department was merged with stormwater, and workers with particular and specific expertise were made to do other jobs that they were not trained in, despite their continuous requests for training. Also, the training to use new and recently bought equipment is sporadic, uneven, and sometimes racially discriminatory in deciding who gets trained. As a tax-paying citizen of this city, it makes no sense to me that millions of dollars are contracted out to private companies on jobs that are always going to be ongoing, and our streets need to be maintained all the time. I therefore request that you consider the following. Number one, hire more city workers with living wages. Number two, buy whatever equipment necessary to do the jobs. Number three, train all the workers on the equipment they need to do the job well. In doing this, we not only provide new jobs within our communities, but are also using our tax dollar to benefit our citizens. Quality jobs are essential for quality services. This is a capital investment that is very much worthwhile. I'm opposed to subcontracting out work and paying millions of dollars to private companies when our city workers are eager and willing to provide the very services we so vitally need. I would like to see the bond proposal as discussed in the Rocky Mount Telegram be based on this type of reinvestment into our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jonathan Hunter.
Good afternoon, everybody. Jonathan Hunter, 609 Atlanta Avenue, Rocky Mount, North Carolina is my address. We give thanks to God, and His Son, Jesus Christ. And I'm here to talk about the proclamation which has been proclaimed that Lincoln, Rocky Mount, acknowledging that the Negro National League for the week of February 10th through 14th, Negro National League week. I think it's a beautiful thing that happened. African Americans didn't have a venue to play after the Civil War. And Andrew Root Foster gave African Americans a venue to play February 13, 1920, a legal venue and a recognized venue. And also, years later, our own Rocky Mount native son, from Rocky Mount, Buck Leonard, went into the Negro Leagues in 1934. And he played 17 seasons, the longest history of tenure of any Negro League played in the history of the Negro Leagues. And this touches me and it's kind of dear to my heart. I ran into the mayor. The mayor and I, we went to school together, played ball together and everything like that. And I talked to him about Buck Leonard a little bit, made a little joke. I said, he said, isn't Buck Leonard related to you? I said, yeah, how you know? He said, what? You talked about him all the time when you was a little kid. So growing up as a kid, that's all I did, to talk about Buck Leonard. And I used to ask my teachers in the 6th and the 9th grade, could I give a report about him? And they never would let me give a report about Buck Leonard. So I'm happy that, now this nation and this city is giving Buck Leonard recognition. So I want to end this with a verse from the Bible which comes to my mind. Proverbs, I believe it's Psalms chapter 118, verse 22. The stone that the builder refused has become the chief cornerstone. And when I think about Buck Leonard's life, that's what I think about. That verse kind of, tells his whole life, because he wasn't able to play in the major leagues because of the color of his skin, but somehow he made it to the major leagues, made it to the Hall of Fame, excuse me. And now the whole world knows about his accomplishments. And now the whole world can know about some other people who played in the Negro League who otherwise wouldn't have been known, because Buck Leonard contributed a lot of knowledge because he was a team secretary and spokesman, and he kept records. So he talked about Smokey Joe Williams, one of the persons that actually discovered him, and so that he could play for the Homestead Grays when he was playing for the Brooklyn Royal Giants in 1933. And also Cannonball with Richard Redding was an outstanding pitcher. And a lot of other good players that would never been recognized without the knowledge that Buck Leonard had. So he was more than a baseball player.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter.
Thank you.
Bronson Williams.
Bronson Williams, 611 Harvard Street, Rocky Mount, North Carolina. We live in a great area that has a rich history of making things happen, even when people count you out. It's just a part of our DNA. It happens. I happened to actually stumble across some words on Facebook, and it said that he is his own man or she is her own woman. Going against the grain doesn't make you your own man or own woman. What makes one their own man or own woman is the ability to independently evaluate what's at hand and objectively side with right over wrong. I would never apologize for choosing to finish school and go off to college and come back home and make a meaningful impact to my community. This is something that I tell and encourage all of my friends to do. Those of you who know I've been involved in this form of city government for quite some time. Oftentimes, I've been known to challenge the city as well as praise the city. I try to be objective as possible. But at the end of the day, I know that some take some of the words that I say at this podium with great concern as to what I may share. But the reality is, Bronson Williams, I love Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and want it to be the best city that it can possibly be. I continue to urge this council not to get caught up in manufactured issues. When you look at and talk to people who are looking, visiting, and moving and talking about Rocky Mount, while they may talk about some of the negative things that's happening in our city, we also can rejoice in the positive. We look at the phenomenal opening day of Popeyes. We look at Panera Bread, Starbucks, Freddy Frozen Clusters coming pretty soon. What's happening at the Mill in downtown? Investment is real in Rocky Mount, and we're moving in a great direction. Oftentimes, people don't like to give credit to this body who helped set the tone with other community leaders working together to create what we see in Rocky Mount today. As always, I urge this council also to tell your own story. It's so easy for someone else to try to tell your story and absolutely get it wrong. In my daycare center, we play this game called Pass the Word. You start with one child, by the time it gets to the other child at the end of the line, they don't know exactly what was said. So it's very important that we use TV19 to really showcase and highlight what's going on in Rocky Mount. We continue to use our social media, our Twitter accounts, etc., to talk about the positive things that's happening in Rocky Mount. Those things are important. Because once a person has a made-up mind, it's real hard to try to change them. It doesn't matter how much truth you spit at them, their heart and their mind is conditioned to receive something entirely different. So I urge you to stay the course, because we're moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Darlene Harris.
Good evening. My name is Darlene Spencer-Harris. My address is 537 Arlington Street. First of all, I'd just like to say that the city of Rocky Mount has some great things going on at the event center. I had the opportunity to see the Harlem Globetrotters and the Monster X tour that was just there this past weekend. The people of the community are coming out and supporting the event center because the event center is here and it's here to stay. So therefore, we should support it so it will be successful. But my concern here today is more because the advisory committee, the transition committee that was formed, when our mayor, Sandy, when you announced that you were having an advisory committee and you were putting Kevin Jones in charge of it, I was delighted to hear that. And I also reached out to Mr. Jones to find out what was the necessary qualifications that was required to be a part of that committee. So he replied to me as to what ward do you live in? I live in Ward 3 where Council Richard Joyner is our council person. And I'm very proud to live in that ward because we got great things going on there. So after responding like that, I didn't hear anything else from him. So the next thing I do, I see an article in the newspaper where the advisory transition committee has already met. It was formed and met and came up with great ideas, I guess. And I didn't have the opportunity, and some other people that I know did not have the opportunity to be a part of that committee. That committee, as a whole, should include people from every ward. Right. All the wards, it should be at least 1 or 2 representatives from every ward to have input, so they not only will they have the input, be able to take something from those meetings and bring it back to their communities, so the people that do come out to the monthly community meetings know exactly what's going on. And I was really upset about not being included. All I wanted to know was what was the requirements, how were the people being selected. So I saw the article in the paper, I recognized some of the names, but for the most part, I didn't recognize any of those names. Where did these people come from?
That's what she had to complain about.
And I'm really upset about that. And And I was gonna reach out to Mr. Jones again, so he could elaborate on it, and I did, well, actually, I did reach out to him. And so his response to me is, well, are you free tomorrow? What time would you like to talk about it? No, I didn't need to do another one-on-one or a message, text, a message back and forth. No, I needed the community to know that I was excluded. Thank you.
I'll speak to that just ever so briefly. Yes, I have formed transition committees and groups to really advise me in terms of what is the public in the city of Rocky Mount. What are we feeling about various issues? That committee, those committees are not affiliated with the city of Rocky Mount. Those are committees that I put forward. I apologize profusely that we have missed your counsel, and I would love the opportunity to talk to you about that later. I just felt like that distinction needed to be made. That you can blame me. I'll own that. But at the same time, it is important that we understand what the community as a whole feels.
Mayor,
Yes.
in that same vein, I don't think some of the council members really understand what the transition team is really about, so you may want to brief all of us about it at some point.
I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment. Anybody in here can form their own advisory committee, okay? It does not give it any legal standing to do anything. So if you want to say you've got a transition committee or an advisory committee, go for it. But just understand, that committee, the mayor's transition committee is not a legally organized, formally organized committee to advise council. There are all kinds of committees in this city, and in May of every year, we solicit nominations to those committees. Anybody interested is welcome to fill out a form. It's called a personal history form. If you go to the city's website, look at the city clerk's area on there, you can print out a copy of that form. You can save it to your computer and fill it out, and save it there, and then submit it. But there are regular appointments to most of these boards and commissions. We don't replace everybody on there every year. They have a term, 2 or 3 years or whatever. And they have an opportunity to continue to serve if they would like to, or when their term is expired, to be replaced. So if you're interested in serving on the board or commission, they are formally established boards and commissions that advise city council in all kinds of areas pertaining to the life of our city. I urge you to get involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner.
Well, that was good, though. Which is a great representation over in Clark Street, and Grant Street community group. Certainly, I would love to meet with you, as we always meet, and fulfill your desire to serve on the city board, that you can have input. But thank you for being here.
Thank you. Okay, Johnny Cunningham.
Chris cleaned it up.
Johnny Cunningham, 546 Maryville Street. Good evening, citizens, staff, council. Mr. Mayor, if I could give you my 3 minutes to elaborate on the request of Councilman Knight, I'm more than happy to do so.
Sure. Tell you what I can do better than that. Why don't you allow me to present a brief that I can present in the next council meeting, or in some other form that might be appropriate.
Transparency. It's a sad day for the city of Rocky Mount that a customer, a citizen's private information, accounting information, can be secretly delivered to another person. And that person take that private information and do harm, indeed defame another citizen with that information. That is a sad day. And then what's really appalling is that this down spiral continued on social media. that information, that whole transaction, actually allows someone, Keith Harris, to actually attack the city staff. It's a sad day for this city when people have an agenda, a racist agenda.
Come on now.
That they can call city staff that should be bound to secrecy and confidentiality of people's personal information.
Shake that.
Can make that phone call and have that person deliver that information about an opponent
Shake that.
and then use that information to harm the opponent. Is wrong. And Mr. Rose, I'm pretty sure it's illegal to do such things. This council must, and must apologize, but I just had to say that. I see it on your agenda. And number 10, and hopefully, the charter that governs, like Mr. Bronson said in the previous council meeting, is the Bible that governs this city council. And to restrict this power, and not to acknowledge, circumvent, and create like transition team like Ms. Miller just announced, has absolutely no power, no authority in this city. I thank the city for their due diligence in understanding what your jobs are, what your responsibilities are, and having all these committees already established.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham.
Good job, dude.
Mr.
Good job.
Nehemiah Smith.
Shake now. That's what that was. Better believe it. I'm here too.
Good afternoon to the council, the manager, and to the mayor. I think the cause of the day, in days of more recent vintage, it has been transparency. And so I hadn't addressed transparency, and I wanted to do so. I know that there was a lot of questions about the event center and transparency there, and I know you can't answer the questions now, but I wanted to, to know what are some of the city's mandates or rules, is it, number one, is it illegal, or do you have a rule against elected officials owning property in the city? Because I know that was an issue, or their family members owning property. I don't know if you have a ordinance against that. I know it's probably asking that question. Two, conflict of interest. What is the city's policy on conflict of interest? If I could get that, if someone can give me that from the assistant city managers. And the last thing, I guess, is, I know that we have organizations in the city, OICs, organizations in the city, that, help people help themselves. And I'm all for those organizations in the city, those OICs. But we also have other organizations in the city, other OICs that I think the city calls vendors. And, I like to be on top of everything. I like to be the top dog when I'm dealing with things, presenting things. And I don't know, for transparency's sake, I, want to know who some of the vendors are in the city, if we could get a list of those vendors. I know that I'm one, and maybe a vendor for, let's say, I can't even think, 3 minutes almost up. Who does trash pickup for, let's say, this facility? So, those are the questions I have to ask, and hopefully I can get answers to those. Specifically, the last one, who does trash pickup for this facility? Also, the conflict of interest piece. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Kaya Darden.
My name is Kaya Darden. I reside at 1600 Barnes Street, Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Ward 1. Greetings to the city manager, Mayor, City Councilman, and citizens of Rocky Mount. I would first like to say that this is my second time attending a City Council meeting. My first attendance was the last City Council meeting, which was quite an experience to see adults conducting themselves in such a manner. As an 18-year-old colored female living in the city of Rocky Mount who was well aware of the crime and gang violence, I tried to educate myself as far as what goes on in the city, behind the scenes, as well as in the news. However, I can say that not all underprivileged kids are thugs and gangbangers. There are actual young people like myself who want to live in and take care of a safe city and help develop ideas to make Rocky Mount a greater place to live. Some of our main focus is on the wrong things. I am a college student at Edgecombe Community, and I've had the opportunity of learning how to manage time. And today I am determined to beat procrastination. So often people get an opportunity to exercise their freedom to speak and waste time complaining about what's not being done, how much bad is happening, and where the bad is taking place. But I don't hear any solutions on how to bring crime rate down or how to sweep the guns off the streets. I don't hear about any of the new developments that are assets to our city. I do suggest that we as leaders in our communities stay out of our feelings and focus on the mission. If you're passionate about saving our people from the streets, passionate about feeding the people in our communities, passionate about keeping trash off of the streets, then stop making it personal. We may not always like who our elected officials are, but considering that they are in that position, I do believe that they were the people's choice. Despite of how we feel, the mission is to get something done. And in order to do that, you have to be adult enough to set your feelings aside and work with our elected officials. If you have a solution, instead of complaining and nagging, let us hear it. Thank you for your time.
All right.
I'm gonna get this wrong because I can't really read the writing well, but Montaz Shaw? I'm sorry.
My name is Mumtaz Sheikh, and I live in 4708 Honeysuckle Lane, Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Hello, council members, members of the public. Hello. I have lived here for years already, and I enjoy living in Rocky Mount. I've seen it expand from a small town to one that has now double lane roads and more and better housing. And I'm very proud to say that from the first day I came to Rocky Mount, I have been paying my taxes. And I would like to implore council members that our taxes should remain in Rocky Mount. And I was quite disturbed, like Dr. Koo, by the recent report that the road building and sidewalk repairs are going to be turned over to a private company. So I think it would be wonderful if we could train our city workers with the equipment that you purchase with our taxes. Train them constantly over years to make them into a skilled workforce that you can depend upon for road building and repairs, sidewalk repairs and all that kind of stuff. Yes, you lose nothing by training your workforce, absolutely nothing. And also, our workers need to be paid a living wage so that they can maintain a decent standard of living and, of course, improved quality of life. And so, please do not export our taxes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kathleen O'Reilly.
Good evening, Mayor, City Manager, council members, and citizens. I've been informed by the local newspaper that the name Rocky Mount is to be removed from the school system, resulting in a new brand name for the school system. I may not understand it, but I certainly do not like it. And let me explain why I don't like it. I live in Rocky Mount, Edgecombe County. There are children in my community who attend the Nash Rocky Mount schools. In the past, I have witnessed Edgecombe County students who live in Rocky Mount being bused to the relatively new Nash Central High School when it needed students to occupy its classrooms. I have witnessed some outstanding school administrators uprooted out of schools that were demonstrating accelerating results in school spirit and academic achievement to be dispersed to other marginal schools where the high level of success did not abound, with some sense of hope that the pending situation would get better. I have repeatedly witnessed low-performing students who may have had behavioral problems assigned to high-performing black teachers, which resulted in teacher burnout and/or teacher resignation, especially at the elementary school level. I have witnessed our stellar landmark Rocky Mount Community Schools closed with the hope of a better placement for our Rocky Mount children. And though the Nash Rocky Mount school merger had its good and bad issues, it has turned out to be a palatable relationship until now. We, the citizens of Rocky Mount, need to know who did it, why it was suggested, and most importantly, what would happen to the fragile minds and hearts of our children and their parents and their grandparents if our name, our legacy, our symbolic representation is removed. Do you care? And what can be done about it? And yes, I want and expect a phone call, which is my number's on the sheet, between 9 and 10 a.m. by next Monday, February 3rd, 2020, from the mayor with some consoling words of thought and direction with regards to preserving the positive relationship that Rocky Mount and its constituents have had with Nash County. I view removing the name of my city, Rocky Mount, from the school system's name that serves the children of my city, Rocky Mount, as an outright insult to me, my neighbors, and my city. We, the citizens of Rocky Mount, North Carolina, deserve a clear explanation. A form of this letter will be presented to the Nash Rocky Mount County Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call it. Right.
Okay, that moves us on to item number 9, which is consideration of the following tax releases and/or refunds. Schedule A, report of taxes under $100 approved for release and/or refund by the city manager, and Schedule B, which is a report of taxes over $100 recommended for release and/or refund by the city council. Is there any need for discussion? Do I have a motion?
Some.
Mr. Black. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Daughtridge. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Which brings us to item number 10, which is consideration of recommendations from a regular rescheduled committee of the whole meeting held December 9th, 2019. Ordinance amending personnel ordinance recommended approval. Note consideration of the ordinance was tabled at the last meeting, and the recommended action is to adopt the ordinance, and it limits the authority of the peer review panel. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we table this to the.
Well, I've got a motion, I'm sorry, from Mr.
I
Blackwell.
was wondering if you have a motion and questions on the floor. Carry the motion.
And I second it.
All right, any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Mr. Daughtridge.
I would like to, again, my concern was, this was discussed in the committee of the whole prior to the election or the seating of the two newest city council members and the mayor, and there's just a lot of questions on here. We were not privy to the discussion. We did have the minutes. I pulled those up. I should have tabled it to the committee of the whole last time. research this, but I still have a lot of questions, not necessarily in disagreement, but I think in light of what we're talking about, we should discuss it in committee of the whole.
Very well.
And I will be voting against the motion.
So, Mr. Mayor, what I would like to recommend, we've been dealing with this issue for years. And we had a discussion, we got a little time, last item on the agenda. Why don't we just go ahead and talk about it right now? You got questions? What are your questions?
Well, okay, Councilman. My questions are with, why can't we, instead of abolishing the whole thing, why don't we just add in there, well, first of all, it's my understanding the reason this is being proposed is because it's going against the charter. I've read the charter, and ultimately the city manager has the ultimate say when someone is hired and fired. And I don't see why we can't just add to the end of one of these paragraphs that the city manager ultimately has say-so even after the peer review reviews it. And I don't know why we're looking to abolish the whole peer review when it comes to dismissal.
The ordinance didn't, and Jeff, you're the attorney, but we didn't abolish peer review. We just abolished, didn't we, just what we just said, that no peer review has a decision, it has a right to terminate or to reverse termination.
That's correct. The peer review remains, actually, it was not, it was in the personnel policy manual, but was not in the personnel ordinance. The documents are not in sync and they need to be made in sync. But this puts the peer review firmly in the personnel ordinance for all disciplinary actions short of dismissal. The peer review would not be used for an employee who's recommended for dismissal.
Guys, despite the fact that the mayor's a non-voter, I'd like to speak to this issue as well. Of course, I do get to vote in the event of a tie. You know, I think it's important that we should look at the checks and balances, and my concern as I look at this is that it may be overreaching. I don't know that I have a full and firm grasp of what the appellate process looks like within the city. I do know that I am generally in favor of anything that provides a protection and another hurdle as it relates to disagreement. I find that that has been something that has been longstanding and traditional here with our country. We have bicameral Congress. We have 3 branches of government, both in the state and federal process as well. And I think the reason for that is so that disagreement can be resolved and that the process will take over and make it important. Of course, it's no reflection on what I believe our city manager is capable of and her abilities, but I just think on principle that's something that the council ought to consider.
I'm gonna call for the motion on the floor.
All right, it's a call for a vote on the motion on the floor. All in favor? Any further discussion?
Please restate the issues it will be voted on.
Okay, item 10 is consideration of recommendations from the regular rescheduled committee of the whole meeting held December 9th, 2019. The ordinance amending personnel ordinances, there's a recommendation for approval. Now note, the consideration of the ordinance tabled at the January 13th, 2020 City Council meeting, tabled last time. And so this ordinance will limit the authority of the peer review panel. I did not get a motion that restated any better than that. Is there additional discussion?
Call for the question.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Mr. Dawson's opposed. Okay. Now we'll be heading into closed session for attorney-client privilege.
Mr. Mayor, before you do,
Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
That I really want to ask, and I have a brief statement to make, especially in light of the last week of all kinds of screenshots that I've been receiving, information that I'm understanding is being discussed, continuing to be discussed on our local public television station. There's still much mystery and all kinds of allegations which are being fed by the fact that the investigation or inquiry or audit of the state auditor's office of the city of Rocky Mount not being concluded. We've been now in a murky place with the state auditor's office responding to intentional allegations promulgated on social media, discussed in the public square without substantiation. Last March, I believe, or so. We've heard them months before, but they culminated with an allegation of investigation in March. We have a project that would continue the development of Rocky Mount's economic well-being with our first major downtown hotel with a internationally recognized flag worth $60 million or so and 1,000 jobs or so. And these allegations that have yet to either be substantiated or dismissed, we don't know, are being investigated by the state auditor. We have been given, to my knowledge, no clarity with the city about what is being investigated or inquired into. The things that I've read on social media seem to point to specific individuals, me being one of them. I don't know if it's an attack against leadership of color, lack of confidence in the direction of our city, or sincere concerns voiced by citizens who have some information. But I think it's more than reasonable to request that some conclusion or at least an update be provided to the citizens of Rocky Mount and especially this governing body about what is being investigated, who's being investigated if there are individuals, and when is this seeming investigation appearing to wrap up or move to another level. We've been told that it was an intentional act to move the vote of the hotel, the downtown hotel project, off of the local government commission agenda until the audit was completed. We were also, or some of us were told, that it was an intentional move to occur before elections. Well, as someone stated, the elections have come and now they've gone, and we're here. But yet we have no clarity on what the resolution of this audit is. So I would like to request that we receive an update from our manager, our city attorney, about the conclusion of this. Is it going to conclude? Is it going to move to another level? What are the allegations, and when will we know something?
I too would like to see what the contents of the black box are, so that we can going about the business of doing business. So
I'll be happy to just comment briefly about this. I think what is most unusual about a state auditor coming into any organization without notice, even given to the mayor and the members of council. So these people just showed up in our organization at people's doors. And anytime you say auditor, you know, you have to know that employees are going to freeze. So I would even question not only the intent, but also the process. Other than the auditor coming to visit with me about a particular question. I had no idea what the auditor was there for. As a city manager of this organization, you would expect, and I have colleagues who have had the state auditor to visit with them, and they were certainly paid the due respect of this office to come into and say, we're here to conduct our audit or our investigation. And certainly at that time, I would open the organization up to that staff. But even that courtesy was not paid, not only to the legislative body, but certainly the chief administrative officer of this organization. And so I would be happy to find out whatever I can. I do know that they have visited with several departments within the city, but certainly it's a mystery to me where the report would even go. Would it come to the mayor? Would it come to the mayor and council? Or would it come to the city manager or all three? So there's a lot to be concerned about in terms of whether or not this process is a legitimate process.
Come on now.
Thank you.
Our attorney to say something on how we can ask our state auditor to respond to some of our requests.
I can't give you an answer this afternoon, but I'll be happy to look at it and see if we can have some rights we can assert in the process.
So we can say that we will take the request and have something to report back to our citizens on our request to our state auditor.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Councilman Aldridge.
I was trying to pull up after the comment was made about transparency, and I was finally able to pull it up. And if I could just take a bit of time to read a letter that I sent on October the 23rd, soon after the election, when I was elected by 74% of the voters or the voting population in Ward 5 to represent Ward 5. I sent a letter to Madam Manager Rochelle Small-Tony on October 23rd. And I'm going to read this letter. Hopefully this letter finds you doing well, and I look forward to working with you. Please note that I have two companies that serve as vendors to the City of Rocky Mount. They are Top Dog Waste Solutions, LLC, and Daltridge Sales Company. Top Dog Waste Solutions services the Rocky Mount Wastewater Treatment Plant, and we provide the city with dumpsters. Daltridge Sales Company provides pressure and temperature instrumentation along with instrumentation calibration to the City of Rocky Mount. Over the past 12 months, my companies have provided the city with almost $18,000 in services and products. In light of being elected to serve the citizens of Ward 5 on the Rocky Mount City Council, it is necessary that my companies no longer, and I repeat, no longer, serve as a vendor to the City of Rocky Mount. While these expenditures are not budgeted line items, it has the appearance of conflict, and on one case there is an agreement that could be viewed as a contract. Also, I would directly and indirectly be receiving benefit from the City of Rocky Mount. As an elected official in local government, the law GS 14-234 prohibits me from having a contract with the City of Rocky Mount. There is a policy and ordinance that addresses such activities. The City Council adopted policy number 11.4 Code of Ethics for Elected Officials of the City of Rocky Mount, which went into effect December 14, 2010. The Rocky Mount, North Carolina Code of Ordinances Division 6, which is called Conflict of Interest in Political Activity, addresses conflicts resulting in financial gain, which is Chapter 16, Article 2, Division 6, Section 16-157, Item B, number 3 and 5. This should provide the City of Rocky Mount ample time to find alternative vendors. We much appreciate the business from the City of Rocky Mount and appreciate the support. Sincerely, Lodge Daltridge, Carbon Copy, Director of Water Resources, Mr. Brenton Bent, and Superintendent of Wastewater Treatment Plant, James Costello, and my business partner, Tim Everett, my partner of Top Dog Waste Solutions. So in light of transparency, I think I've been transparent,
I think I'm above board, and I'm offended by anybody suggesting otherwise.
Please. So what we have is both our city attorney and city manager will proceed on with the state auditor to understand where we are. At this point, I'd like to cease discussion.
Mayor,
Mayor,
I have a question.
What is your
Are
question?
you attempting to silence me?
He's a councilman.
That's what we're trying to do.
I would like to speak
Transparency, what happened to that?
before Councilman Daughtridge gave his definition of transparency.
Right.
I was gonna go back to the question or the motion, or if it was a motion on the floor, and that it be an official motion supported by this board, giving you and the city manager direction to how to respond to the auditor. I thank you for reading your letter, but prior to you coming here, this whole council has been transparent. So let's get back to the business at hand with the auditor, and then we deal with you with your transparency and your track record.
Very well. So is that a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman,
Mr. Mayor,
Mike?
it needs to go back to Councilman Blackwell.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say,
Yes, sir.
I thought I would wait to committee of the whole, but since we're on it now, I'd like to make that motion, but the motion needs to be that we have a letter of resolution sent to the state auditor so that we can be able to get the full scope of what's going on, get the results of this audit, so that we can be able to move forward with our economic development. That's something that I stood on in my campaign platform, and I firmly believe that the citizens of Rocky Mount are looking forward to economic development and the growth within the city.
All right.
All right, I have a motion on the floor to empower and to authorize the mayor, city manager, and the city attorney to inquire the state auditor in terms of the status of where we are as it relates to the current audit process.
Get up out of here.
There was a motion made by Councilman Walker, a second made by Councilman Joyner. Is there any need for additional discussion? Yes, sir.
And these results will come to the council, or they come to the manager or mayor?
Well, if I get them, I'll pledge to make sure you get a copy of it. How about that?
All right, or in the resolution, if you can say it comes to the council.
And any information will then be distributed to council as received. I've got a motion, a second. Any additional discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Very well, thank you. With that, we'll now move into closed session for attorney. Yeah, I need I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?